This bill does try to confront a real problem, and that is the many fines, thousands of fines that remain unpaid, and all sorts of administrative difficulties running around chasing after people, trying to get some money out of them. But there's an intrinsic problem here, and I think this bill goes in the wrong direction, which is why the Green Party opposed it on the first reading and will oppose it on this particular reading as well, in that it's not particularly productive because the people it's chasing after in the main are the very poorest people in our society, the people who might get a little fine for a parking infringement or speeding fine or some small criminal offence, but they are down, often unemployed, between jobs, in large families. It is somewhat difficult often for them to get the money together to pay the fine, and they tend to sort of avoid it and put it off, and then it gets bigger and more problems develop. Now, there's two ways of dealing with that problem. One is really getting alongside the person affected and trying to work out a repayment system, work out a way that isn't too much of a heavy burden on them at any one point in time. Or the other way is to just slam more penalties on top of them in various ways. And the people this affects tend to be, and I presume maybe Hone Harawira is speaking after me, most of the people, a lot of the people affected tend to be young Māori. That's where the concentration of unpaid fines often happens to be. So it only makes young Māori who are more likely to be unemployed, more likely to be poorer, even poorer, and in more difficulties socially and in all kinds of ways under the pressure of what is proposed in this bill. Because what is proposed in this bill, various things like driver's licence stop orders, so that a young person with fines owing, finding it very difficult to pay, they've actually finally got a job and jumping into their car to get to work to get the money to pay their fine, and all of a sudden they're hit with this driver's licence stop order. They can't get to their work, lose their job, and get further and further in debt. So that is not necessarily the answer. And this is associated with amendments to the Sentencing Act 2002 to make more efficient the reparation and vehicle confiscation orders, which not only takes the licence off somebody who might be in this difficult position, but actually confiscates their vehicle, which is probably the main asset they own in life, and really puts them back to square one or behind square one. And then, to make matters worse, this bill authorises home detention or prison sentences to be substituted for unaffordable and unenforceable reparation orders. So, again, the young person, they're struggling, haven't been able to afford their fines, or for various reasons a bit mixed up and all the rest of it. Now, not only do they lose their licence or lose their car, but they might get chucked in jail or in home detention. That sort of, it just isn't the answer. It may be the answer in some cases. I'm not, and the Green Party certainly not denying that, but the whole approach is a punitive approach that doesn't really put us any further forward. And it only, there's often talk about an underclass and all the rest of it in our society. Well, if you're talking about an underclass, this is actually helping to enlarge the underclass, the people who are really in difficulty, and when they're subject to all these additional penalties, they're more likely to sort of change houses and try to get, change names or try and get away from the authorities, which creates even more problems for them, their families, their friends, their workmates, etc., etc. So it doesn't really work. And then the other element of the bill, to provide information on the fines to credit authorities. That doesn't necessarily help. Sure, it helps if someone goes in for a loan and the credit authorities can find out they got a big fine and might be more likely to default on their loan. But it's not really helping the person to get out of the bind they're in. And really, we should be starting at the other end with more social workers, more people working with the schools, working with all the sorts of people who are in contact, the community organisations, the whānau organisations, the iwi organisations, all of the organisations that can somehow work alongside these people to get them to repay their debts. To my way of thinking, the punitive approach doesn't work. It just creates, and it develops collectively amongst people who are down the bottom, a psychology of, we're on one side and these people on the other side, the richer people, are out to get us, where it's fair enough if we dodge the law and dodge repayments and all the rest of it, because that's the only way we'll get by in life. So the Green Party, in summary, sees all of these measures as being counterproductive. I think that's the word for it, counterproductive. It doesn't, and I think if you add them all up, you're not necessarily going to get more money for the Treasury out of it. You're going to get more social problems, more people in prison, more people unemployed, more people feeling they're alienated from the system, more people who feel they're part of an underclass, and also more racial divisions in our society, in the sense that Māori are probably more likely to be affected than non-Māori. Thank you.